I welcome you to Creative Spirit Gathering. This is your place for using your art journal to explore and express what is on your mind and your heart. Today, we are continuing with the theme of release, of letting go, of decluttering, getting rid of those things that no longer serve us. And I'm going to be sharing with you a process that I've used several times in my journal. And this is a process of letter writing. So I've created a little envelope in here to hold a letter that I've written. So I'll share with you how I did that and a little story behind why I did that in my journal as we move into our process today. Thank you for being a part of our community, and thank you for the many ways that you share your gifts of time, talent, and treasure. Creative Spirit Gathering is offered on a donation basis. It means you get the opportunity to share from your heart a love offering, a tithe, a gift of financial support to help keep this program going. You can give on our website at unityartsministry.org. So this morning I was looking at my latest little creative project, which is I'm working on a scarf. And this is one of my winter projects. I've been doing this for the last 5 years about. I don't crochet but once per year. And so I've been very, very slowly learning the process. I'm not to the skill level where some of our community members are with their crochet skills. You know who you are. And so those of you who do crochet on a regular basis will probably recognize a little problem here. This is my scarf. It's a little excessive. And I didn't even realize it because I was just, making it up on my own and going along. And I got to this point, and last night my son came up to me and he's like, Mom, that's a really big scarf. And so I looked at it, I was like, oh, well, yeah, it is, but it'll be okay. And so I kept going a little bit further, right? Adding some more rows to it. And then this morning, it occurred to me, I should probably figure out how big is a scarf actually supposed to be. It should be like the width of your hand, like half the size of my scarf, right? And I realized I had a decision to make. I can keep going and continue with essentially my own lack of understanding, my own ignorance moving into it. Or now that I know better, I can unravel it and I can start over, right? It's so easy to just pull the thread. I can unravel, I can start again. And it occurred to me that this moment in my own life was such a beautiful reflection for the process of release. Because when we are working on something like this, right, whether we realize, ooh, I've made it way too big, or we're looking and we realize I did something in here and there's 4 holes in the middle of my scarf. If I keep going, it's going to be harder to go back and fix them. But when we acknowledge something, when we see something that we're holding on to, something that's not serving us, right? And we just keep going and we let it just sit there and we keep building on top of it, it becomes harder and harder to go back and release that. Last year, the scarf that I did, I was using this really thick wool, which I thought was a clever way of doing it more quickly. And what happened was it was really cumbersome to work with. And so it took me even longer to figure out, ooh, there's a big mistake happening. And so the sides of my scarf kind of go like this, out and then back in as I try to correct it. And so it's really weird. But it's one of those, if I had seen that it was starting to go out, right, I could have corrected that sooner rather than keep building on it, right? Because every row that I did, it made it go wider and wider and wider. And when we are holding on to things that don't serve us and we keep trying to build on top of them, our foundation is unstable, right? There's some dis-ease in our foundation that we're trying to just ignore it and just keep going, keep going, keep going. But there's a problem, right? At that core, if our life we're the artwork, so to speak, right? The composition is always going to be off because we're holding on to something and we're trying to build upon something that isn't serving us. And so today I want to invite us to think about the process of release, specifically as it has to do with forgiveness work, of letting go of those judgments on ourselves first and foremost. Now, I could have, when I realized, oh, my scarf is way too big, it's too wide, I could have easily, right, gone down that rabbit hole of beating myself up. I should have done the research first. Now I've spent, 4 days working on this project and it's all for nothing. And, if only I was smarter, I would have done better. But to treat myself with gentleness, yeah. And in the background, my cat just decided to use my carpet as a litter box. Thank you, Kitty. Interesting moment. Life has things to teach us all the time, doesn't it? I always say, as a minister, be careful what you preach because you get the opportunity to practice it. So not only do I have a scarf to redo, I have a carpet to clean. Yeah, I love you too. She's old, we just send her love, right? Power of forgiveness, people. You can plan this stuff. So first, I forgive myself, and then I look at those around me and I see, where am I holding on to things that I need to let go of? Where am I projecting either towards myself or towards somebody else? Blame, shame, guilt, anger, jealousy. Chat comment just came in. She decided to let go and let God. Right there. She let go. Thank you. Yeah. So again, how could I respond to this, right? And something happens, I could get up, I could throw the cat across the room and be like, stop it, cat. Or I can just say, she is, right? Still a loving being, and I still have compassion for her. She is my little buddy. She's just getting old. And apparently walking to the litter box didn't seem like a good plan right now. So, yeah. So we learn to lean into these things. But when we hold on to that guilt or that shame or that blame towards ourselves or towards somebody else, it's like that missed stitch that keeps throwing us further and further and further off course. And our beauty that we shine, right? That art of our life that we shine out into the world looks a little skewed when inside we're holding on to this anger and this resentment or a sense of revenge, right? That never looks pretty. And I'm not saying, and thank you, Kitty, for this reminder, that we need to like what happened. Yes. Not necessarily excited about the release that happened on my floor, but I can forgive her, right? I don't need to like the action or the behavior. Again, even if it was something that I did, a misstitch or making my scarf too long, I just don't need to hang on to the sense of control around it. The serenity prayer comes to mind for those of you familiar with it. And if you're not, I'm going to say it. So here it is. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Now, that first line, the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, it doesn't mean to like the things I cannot change. It means to accept the fact, right? It's an awareness and acceptance that I can't change it. It's happened already, whether it's something that I did in the past, something that somebody else did in the past, something I'm afraid somebody else is going to do in the future, right? I can't control that, but I can control so many other things. And when I focus on those, that's that life-giving energy, and I'm focusing on that piece of it. When we think of release in terms of forgiveness work, we can kind of see it again as that groundwork of the art of our lives, creating that strong compositional framework that we're building upon. We could also look at it as personal house cleaning, right? House cleaning of the soul to release those things that don't serve us. Charles Fillmore, founder of these 12 powers that we've been exploring, said, love, tenderness, and fearlessness seem to be the dominating characteristics back of proper elimination for mind and body. So love, tenderness, and fearlessness are those dominating factors for the process of release. Fear, hate, revenge, and the like cause resistance and tension. They shut off elimination, while love puts away fear and is of a softening, releasing, freeing, balancing nature. So as we practice this work, we are moving in to a deeper sense of our own spiritual truth. We are doing the work to release that which doesn't serve so we can move more deeply into that sense of love and compassion and expression into the world for ourselves. Again, being loving and compassionate and forgiving with ourselves, and also being loving, compassionate, and forgiving with others. The disciple that Charles Fillmore associated with the power of release was Thaddeus. And I did a little research here, right? The logic geek in me wanted to see, what does Thaddeus mean, right? That name itself. And so I did some research, and in Greek, Thaddeus means heart, warm-hearted, courage of the heart, friend. So if you're picking a baby's name and you want your baby to be named after warm-heartedness and friendship, Thaddeus is a good one to pick. But it also reminds me, right, that if this is a power within me, the power of release, and these qualities can be represented by this particular disciple, then I can call on these qualities within myself, on warm-heartedness, on friendship, on coming from my heart for the power of release. And so for it to work properly, right, we need to release and eliminate that shame, that blame, that guilt, that fear that doesn't serve. So we're going to be doing that today in our art journals, right? Exploring this theme. Now, in the page that I shared with you early on, I told you that I had written a letter as part of my release process. And I've done this several times, actually, when I find myself getting stuck in that story mode, you know, where I'm like, oh, if only if they had done this differently. And so I've begun sort of approaching my forgiveness work from the perspective of gratitude work, which is thank you for making that choice so I could choose a different path. You know, thank you for showing me and modeling for me what you did so I could choose something different. And just being present, you know, what am I grateful for? And not necessarily dwelling on the things that I labeled as like bad choices so much as just recognizing that they weren't mine to control. They weren't mine to do in the first place. And the thing that I can control is how I respond to it. And so I've, to write and keep these letters because they are something that I will sometimes go back to. Sometimes in my journal, I want to just smear something over. I don't want to remember it. It's just like, it was just that process of getting through with my letter writing to self campaign. I will oftentimes keep them, you know, so that I can go back and reference. Forgiveness, right, is not always a one-time thing. 70 times 7, right? Like we keep going back to it. And so when I might feel that sense of blame or shame coming back up around a person or a situation, if I have that letter already written, it can be part of my meditation on forgiveness and going back to that process. So in this case, right, it was more about the letter itself was the important part of the page, but I wanted to create a nice place to keep it. And so I made this little envelope in my journal. And I just did that by taking a piece of scrapbook paper. And I cut it down first, but so you can see kind of the bigger version, right? It's like a full sheet of paper that you then can cut to whatever size you want, cut it smaller, but just folding it and leaving a little flap at the top. I just like the little flaps. You don't need one, but I think they look cute. So then it's always fun to put a little sticker on it or something. And then I would glue the back side of that little envelope right onto my journal page. And in this case, I also used magazine images. And I thought it was interesting, this one has the word connect and a phone call, a little phone on it. So we'll share with you that this page was done in 2016, this particular one. And it was for somebody that I hadn't seen since I was 13 years old. But I had done this forgiveness work around it. And I went back to this forgiveness work several times, not necessarily with the letter, but a few different times. And I kept getting this inner urge to connect. And at one point I did come back to this journal page and saw, the connect on there. And I was like, well, I do feel like I want to do this. And so I made a revised version of my letter, and I actually sent it out to the person, and they called me back and said it was one of the best things that they had ever gotten in their lives, and that they were so grateful that we were reconnected. Our reconnection lasted for a couple of years and then sort of dwindled away again, as sometimes relationships do. But just to know that we had that heart-to-heart connection again, and it truly did feel like a healing in my life and in our relationship. I'm not suggesting that you need to ever send these letters anywhere. I'm just sharing with you where my process of forgiveness took me in that journey. The true power of forgiveness work is that we are letting go, right? We are the ones that are releasing that tension. We're, no longer poisoning ourselves with anger and resentment, but we are releasing that acceptance piece. Again, we don't need to like what happened, but we just lean into the acceptance that it did happen. And so what do I do from here? And if I lean into that power of love, that power of warm-heartedness, how can I transform my life? And sometimes in that process, it transforms relationships as well. So I invite you today to explore the power of forgiveness. Now, I do want to say too, sometimes we have things that are really big in our lives. And again, forgiveness is not a one-time thing. But for today's process, knowing the time frame that we have, maybe you want to focus on something that feels safe to explore in an hour. Maybe not tackle like the biggest thing in your life, unless if you want to set an intention, I'm going to focus on this week, and just keep coming back to it little by little. I know that we're here to support you throughout the process as well. Before we move into our time of journal expression, we're going to do a short meditation to center into these ideas. So I invite you, wherever you are, to first check in with your body. It's a good time, to adjust your hips if you've been sitting. Move your legs around, feel your feet flat if that feels comfortable. Roll your shoulders. Oh, my shoulders love to go up by my ears sometimes. Just drop them down. And then once we've settled the body, take a couple of deep breaths here. Again, the breath helps us to center into presence, into this moment. The breath itself is cleansing and releasing. We bring in that life flow, and then we let it go. And as we gently let ourselves breathe naturally, we let ourselves fall into a deeper state of contemplation. Thinking on the areas in our lives where maybe we're holding on to missed stitches, ideas that are rooted in shame or blame, places that we're willing to let go. And as we let go, we let love, let the power of love fill that space, fill that relationship with ourselves, our relationship with others, our relationship with spirit. We simply rest with these ideas and let them rest in our heart center, bringing them to the light in a moment of silence. For the gift of release and the power of forgiveness, we say thank you, Spirit. Amen. Invite you now to move into your journal expressions to explore the theme of forgiveness, however you wish to do so in your journal, in whatever way your heart is leading you forward.